So the next speaker, I'm going to get a bit technical, and one thing that I'd like to mention about the next speaker is I've had the privilege of working with him, especially in developing CTF challenges for the CTF platform. When it was still under ctf.cyberspace.co.ke. And he's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best individual when it comes to mobile exploitation, browser exploitation as well, reverse engineering. And I won't say so much about him because I know some of you may be familiar with him. So I'd like to invite Charles to come. He'll be taking us through a tale of Android zero-day hunting. So I'm looking forward to the tale.
So, in the next few minutes, you're going to have brain torture, but I promise you're going to learn a lot. So, our talk for the time being is a tale of finding Android 0 days, right? So we'll get to see what 0 days are, why they are cool, and all sorts of things you can do with them. So, who am I? My name is Charles, but many people call me Chalie for some reason. And I have been in the cybersecurity industry for the last couple of years, doing insane research on various things here and there. So I used to be an independent researcher until recently when a company called SilenceX hooked me up. So I'm working there as an offensive security consultant during the day, and during the day I'm doing vulnerability research. So I'm a jack of all trades. I do many things. You'll find me in web dev, mobile, and just trying to secure a living. And I love Android and ARM assembly. Those are my favorite. Man, I use Parrot OS. Everybody should use Parrot OS. So why would you hunt for Android 0 days? Well, for one, they have heavy bounty rewards. From 0 DM, you can see that an Android FCP goes for, this is 200 plus million Kenyan shilling, and you spend maybe a year plus getting one, and it's definitely worth it. Then it's open source and welcoming to hobbyists and researchers. So for iOS research, you have to do insane reverse engineering with no resources, just doing black box stuff, and it's quite frustrating. Then we have rich people problems in iOS. When you're doing research on iOS, you must have the latest M1 and the latest iPhone. Quite expensive and not convenient at all. And then Android is well documented and heavily, it's heavily documented with a supportive community. So you'll get to ask people questions, however stupid, and they'll answer. For iOS, you barely answer. So let's get to the basics. So what do you need to get started in hunting for these things we're calling 0 days? Now, before I get to the basics, 0 days are vulnerabilities that haven't been exploited before. So, by the show of hand, how many people are comfortable with any programming language? C, any? 6? Damn. So, I had 2 parts for this. If most of you, if the higher percentage was supposed to, if the higher percentage would have like good or maybe just basic skills on such programming languages, we would have gotten quite technical. But since most of you don't have sufficient stuff in that, we are going to be overly abstracted. So I'm going to make this as friendly as possible. The brain torture bit has been done away with. So for the basics to begin doing stuff, you need to be good in basic memory corruption bugs. So these include buffer overflows. If you've been playing CPS, you definitely know about this. Others include stack overflows and such kind of stuff, but it's very rare to get such in exploitation. We'll see about that later. So you need a couple of languages. You need to be good in C. C is a programming language. C++, a little bit of assembly, Java, and probably English. And it's optional. You can do some other languages. And also, you need to have a good PC with 8 GB plus RAM and 50 GB hard disk is sufficient. If you have a hard disk, the better. And then you need a good internet connection. And patience. It takes quite a huge amount of time to get things set up when doing this sort of stuff. So let us begin. Well, it's going to be a problem. Why? Where do you begin? So you have the basic memory corruption exploitation skills, you have all those C++ and whatever skills, but you don't know where to get started. So for me personally, I had quite a hard time, trying to DM people who critique me a lot. They are quite good in these, and that's the bit of patience. So you read a lot of reports, you understand nothing from project zero, you do a lot of CTFs, and you question your sanity. I mean, I'm good at memory corruption, but why am I not seeing stuff why am I not finding 0 days? And then you Google a lot, stupid questions, but you'll eventually get what you want. Then you need to set up your lab. This is where you install the build tools, Android Studio, I don't know, some getting the source kernel and all that stuff. And I think you're good to go. So I was to focus on using publicly available resources because we said that the rest are rich, iOS people rich programs and all that stuff. So you have Size Caller, it's a bot, like Siri, or what do you call this Android stuff? Android Assistant or something. It usually fuzzes the kernel on a daily basis and submits reports. So if you subscribe to the mailing list, you will be up to date with anything happening around the kernel. So you see some fix that has been pushed, and then you look at it and you might find a 0 day. And then you read security bulletins. So these are usually released with every update of the the Android device. You just go through. If you see a CVE something, you just focus on that because you might have find a way to bypass what they just pushed. And then you read changelogs. So if you've been using GitHub and Git and all those VCS stuff, you know what changelogs are. So they kind of tell you the changes that have been made to the update or something, and then patch diffing. You compare the old version of Android with the one that has been currently released. And then we have Twitter. People tweet a lot about these issues, and you can definitely learn a lot from that. And then you should stalk other researchers. I mean, I stalk Marty Stone because she's good at what she does. You should definitely do that with pace. So my hunting methodology, what I usually do, I read write-ups from, the main source is Project Zero, but we have other researchers releasing stuff, so I just go through that and then read the root cause analysis. So I don't want to get quite jargonish and technical. I'm going to use common English. So I read reports, we all know reports, and then after that, I do something called pulling the kernel. So it's like when they push an update, I just pull it to my machine and do a different stuff to see the difference between the old release and that release. And then I also browse the kernel, time travel. There is this site called Bootling. You can be able to go to any kernel you think about and try to see stuff that was exploited before and try to understand what it's doing, and if you don't, you move to the next and keep trying until you get something. And then after that, I tried to create my own version of the exploit. However horrible it is, it's a learning process. So before we dive in, I want to take you through the Android privilege escalation model. So once again, I'm not going to be technical, because if I get technical, most of you will sleep and it's not good. So at the lower end, you can see the CPUs. Well, we all know devices have CPUs, the processing units and stuff. And then in the middle between, you have the kernel space. So this is where the kernel exists. And I've been mentioning the word kernel a lot. So the kernel is the core of an operating system. It's without the kernel, the operating system cannot, it's useless. So it's sort of the brains of the operating system. And it has something called a task scheduler. So the task scheduler, you can see I've made it like it's sort of a Linux disguised in Android. Well, that's because Android is basically Linux. It's just that it has been heavily patched. The patching means it has been extremely modified. So it looks like it's something else, but the lower end, it's just the Linux whatever. So after the task scheduler, we have something called multi-threading. Okay, so multi-threading in layman's English, it's just multitasking. So you can see those Android icons with some Linux stuff inside. So assume those are individual tasks. So maybe the first one powers on the screen, the second one does something else to your phone, the third one, all that stuff. And then we have the first from the left. You can see an L, and those are called lightweight processes. So from the task scheduler, we have many processes. These only exist in the kernel space, but we also have separation between the kernel space and the user space. So, well, in English, just plain English, we have different layers of formation in the Android devices. So, in the kernel space, we have extreme privileges. You can do anything you want when you are in the kernel space. But in the user space, you can just open WhatsApp, go to Facebook, like on Instagram and stuff. But in the kernel space, you can do anything you feel like. You can read WhatsApp messages, even if they have been secured with the password and stuff. So you have a lot of privileges inside here. And then outside there now, we have what we call lightweight processes. A kind of babies of these tasks. And just to simplify this, well, just know we have separation between stuff. And then you have something interesting called a CRED. Well, if you're comfortable with C, it's a data structure. If you do not know what C is, CRED is like this tag. So my tag says I'm a speaker. Yours probably says you are an attendee. So the privileges of being a speaker, I can hold the mic, you can't, unless you're asking a question. So the CRED is what tells the kernel the privileges something has. So it's very irregular if you had WhatsApp doing what? Powering off the device. Well, it's not reasonable, but it would be reasonable if you had the power button powering off the device. So that's what we have in the separation. So this CRED structure is very important because it's what we are going to target to elevate our privileges from being an attendee to being a speaker, right? So conventionally, people used to use those memory corruption bugs that I was talking about, the stack overflows, the buffer overflows. It was very simple, you just control we have something called a pointer. It just points to the next instruction. You click on WhatsApp, it just says open the home page. And then when you click on something else, it says do that. It tells the CPU to do that. So you will just corrupt that, and you could definitely do anything, but Android kernel developers are getting serious day in, day out. So they made that quite difficult. So at the moment, the only sort of thing you can do is called data-only attack. So where you corrupt the data. So assuming the credential says an attendee, I just write speaker. And then when the kernel comes and says, oh, you are a speaker, should be here, should not be here. And that's how you elevate your privileges. Quite simple, right? Yeah, it's very simple. So now I say I'm going to use a very simple analogy. So now assume we have a farmer, all right? They plant flowers in red. So they just come, they have several sections of land. They come and plant flowers in the first section, the second section, and the last section. Then when the time for harvesting comes, they have plenty of harvest. So they harvest everything and they think, oh, I'm going to plant again. But this time, I got like excess, I reaped a lot of stuff, so my granaries were full. So I'm just going to plant in a couple of sections. Not a couple of sections. They kind of like, when you get rich, you become ignorant. So you gain weight. It's one of the things accompanied with becoming rich. You can see I'm weight. So when they are planting, they forget to plant in this section, but they do not notice that they haven't done that. So they break up with their girlfriend, and the plants continue to grow with this section having nothing, but in their minds they think they planted something. So when they break up with the girlfriend wants to kill them, but they only get out in cars and there is no way to reach them. So the girlfriend has access to the farm. You know, when you are dating, you have access to the house, to some title deeds that are not hidden and such stuff. So they come and plant wheat in this farm. So assuming the farmer had planted wheat, they come and plant wheat. Wheat looks like wheat. So when the farmer comes back, they just harvest everything. They do not realize they have harvested a combination of wheat and wheat. So when they keep stuff in their granaries, they start eating day in, day out. They eventually get mad because wheat gets people mad. So that's the same thing we are going to use to elevate our privileges in the exploit that I'm going to showcase. Well, the kernel reads data to the memory just normally, and then it reads from the memory just normally without having any issues. But then this specific bug is usually called a use after free, because the farmer planted and then harvested. So you can call planting allocation, and then harvesting you can call it freeing the land, and then planting again it's allocation with some freed land, and then the angry eggs you can just call them a primitive. So they sort of an exploit. And then when the farmer harvests again, we have now the use after free. They're thinking this land has wheat, but in the real sense it didn't have wheat, it had nothing. But the exploit creator planted wheat and they harvested wheat. So it's the same thing we use in Android when you have such type of a bug. So you have clean data, it's cleaned out of it. We have clean data in the memory, and then it's cleaned out. I thought this is black. Thank you. So we were talking about clean and dirty data. So you have clean data in the memory. You free the data, now the memory is empty. You have allocation of some data, but forget to allocate some sections that had been freed a while back, and then the section looks like this. It has some freed section that you don't even know, the kernel doesn't even know about. So as the attackers plant remember the crate thing I was talking about? We just plant it here. So when the kernel reads it, it will be like, oh, this guy is not an attendee, he's a speaker. So when it reads, this is the speaker, you get your privileges elevated. And the same thing happens to the farmer getting high. So let's now go to the demo. I do not want to go to the exploit because it's quite lengthy, but you have the basic understanding of what's happening. So I just compiled the kernel few minutes ago. I don't even know if it's going to work, but just show some evidence. You can see it's clean, just finished building like a few seconds ago. Wow. Oh yeah, there it is. So if this doesn't work for some reason, I have a backup kernel that I had built a while back, so we will be using it. So I bought a Pixel device specifically for this demo, only to find out that it has a lot of bootloaders. So we're going to use an emulator instead. I really wanted to show you guys how iOS is weak. It's for the weak because elevating, hacking an iOS device, it's quite easier compared to doing the same stuff on Android because we have excessive mitigations on Android. So I'm not going to take you through them, I'm just going to showcase the demo, and probably we'll have another section where I go through the exploit, step by step, showcase what it does, and all those stuff. So I'm just going to start it up. It's going to take some few seconds. As it does that, we can probably be doing something useful. So, oh yeah. So I'm going to say, I don't know how I'm going to hold this. I hope I'm still audible. Awesome. So, actually, let me just copy all these instead of typing. And then, just going to paste it. And then I'm going to do some navigation. It's Android and this. And then the list what we have here also, we have the demo. So this is where my exploit lies. I'm going to showcase it in a few minutes. And then we have the all these. When you start pulling from the kernel from source, you'll see all this stuff, and it's quite heavy. So the final build exists in this out file, out directory. So I'm just going to copy all this because this is where you have it. So out, just copy that and then paste it. Okay, so let's do this one. We're focusing, so I'm just going to paste it again. Why is it doing that? I don't know. It was working yesterday, I promise. So, as I do this, actually you can be shooting up questions if you have any. Oh yeah, and then we have the busy image. There we go. Now we have the phone springing up. You can close this log. So this is the Pixel 2 device. It's made by Google and heavily patched. Then I'm going to open another terminal that we'll be using to shoot the exploit. So okay, so you can see it's a real device. It's not fake. No, it's not moving. Damn it! I promised it was moving yesterday. It really was. Oh yeah, it's moving. I'm probably having some. It's crashing for some reason. So don't send. Let's try to see the settings and actually verify it's a Pixel device. So scroll down to the about the device, and then you can see the number, and it's running on Unreal 10. And all that stuff. So now let's fire up another terminal. and we will be using something called ADB. So it's an Android debug bridge. It's used to communicate. It's used in communication between the host Mac and the Android phone. So let me just navigate where I have the exploit. It's in Android. Oh yeah, you can be shooting up questions if you have any, as long as they are not personal. So demo, and then release. So you have all these files. We have exploit.cpp, exploit.h, blah. Those are the files I've used to create the exploit. And you have the bad binder. So I just named it bad binder because that was the name it was dubbed in. Now I'm going to push these, db, and then push db, and then push it to a directory called data, and then local, and then tmp. So this is a globally readable directory. Oh yeah, you can see it's already pushed, and then I'm just going to shoot up the ADB shell. Now I'm in the device, but I do not have a lot of privileges when I when I ask who am I. So let's see. Oh, who am I? I really hope that font is visible to everyone. Oh come on, you guys are not speaking. So let me try to zoom it out. Okay, so is that readable? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
You can see. Oh, that did aspect probably blind. But let me just zoom again. Now, if you can see that, you have an issue. So I'm just going to ask, who am I? Wait, who am I? And we can see that I'm just a shell. Well, if I'm running the command from the device, I will be maybe the mobile or some application, but we want to be root. So having root means we have complete access of the phone. Maybe you can navigate to some private places where the phone stores our data. We can go read messages, we can read emails. We definitely do everything we want with the phone when we are root. But when we are another user, we have like all those limits. So I'm just going to navigate to the directory that I just pushed the exploit. I think it was in data, and then local, and then tmp. Alright, so let's see. Then I try to the demo box. Now you have this exploit but bind, and I'm just going to run. Now let me just check the ID. You can see I have the user share with the UID 2000 and all that. When I am root, I should have a UID of 0, GID of 0. Let's not talk about those, but just know they should be 0. So let me run the exploit. Fingers crossed it's going to work. Oh, please do work. Demo goes, okay. I failed to work. Let's try again. But binder, you can see it's doing some stuff. Okay, let me just use another kernel. That seems to be not working for some reason. So let me just disconnect for a sec. I don't want to see my secret folders. So just a second. Be patient. Oh, you can be asking questions.
Hi, Chalie. Great presentation, and I've heard you explaining the 0 days. You've explained it so well, and from the presentation I've seen end days. Do you mind explaining what the end days are?
Oh, so 0 days are previously unexploited devices, not devices, like exploits. But end days, they are all 0 days. So when a 0 days, when a 0 day passes like 1 day, 2 days, it becomes a 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. So we just call them end days. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello, Chalie.
Hi.
Great presentation again. And could you just tell me a little about the bad binder exploit? I missed some of the best parts.
Come again.
Could you tell us more about the bad binder exploit?
Right, so the bad binder is basically used after free. Should I get technical?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right, so let's do this. So the bad binder is basically used after free in the binder. So when you have an application like WhatsApp, and you want to save your number, somebody's number. Okay, let's assume somebody texts you from WhatsApp, and then you want to save their number from WhatsApp. So you just click on the number and then it automatically takes you to the contact application. Well, ideally, WhatsApp should not be able to communicate with the contacts application. They should have a layer of separation, but you have something called binder. So the binder is an IPC mechanism. It's in the process control. So it facilitates that transfer of the number from the WhatsApp to the contact application, right? So that's the binder. Now the bad binder bug is a 0 day that was found by Salesbot that I was talking about a while back. So the fuzz is the kernel. So it's used after free. Right? You remember when I showed you the farmer planting and all that? It's used after free in the binder. So the binder has something called a wait queue. And when the wait queue is free, the binder thread forgets that the wait queue had been allocated and has been freed. So when the process attempts to exit, we have the memory being not in use, but it's trying to be used again, right? So that's what bad binder is. Have I answered the question? God damn it, I roasted someone's brain. Did I answer the question? Oh, come on. Did I answer the question? I suppose I did. So let me just bring it up again and let's redo it with the demo boards on our side. So I'm just going to bring the screen and then, let me just present it.
Question.
Yeah, question. Huh?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the Android, like the camera, so do I assume like the bad binder is an universal exploit or something?
So the bad binder, okay, we have different kernels branching from Android. Each manufacturer like Samsung, HTC, Huawei have a version of the Android OS modified a little bit, but the core concepts remain the same. They barely change the kernel. So when you find a kernel bug in Android, it's almost universal. It requires little or no per device customization. So if it works on Google Pixel 2, that means if a patch hasn't been released, it should also work on your Nokia, your Infinix, and your Itel. So it should be sort of cutting across all the devices. Have I answered your question?
I think that's pretty much basic or something.
Awesome. So let me just push the exploit again and spin up the shell. So it will be shell. And then we move back to the data and then local, then TMD. And then now let's check the ID so that you don't say I messed up things when I stop sharing. We can see here shell, and then we attempt to run a command like maybe, what privilege command? Okay, let me just try the message. Oh, it's the message. So you can see it's saying permission denied. That means we don't have access to that. But let's run the exploit, but binder, and we can see it doing stuff. And we have a root shell. Now if I check the ID, I am root. So I have complete control of the application. Maybe I can just scroll down a little bit to see what the exploit did. So, well, we can see the introduction. I did make it when I was half asleep. But it's just a rewrite of something that had been exploited before. So they did it, and I took the latest kernel, created a patch. Actually, I'm going to release all this stuff via GitHub after this, so you should be able to see it after this. So you can see it's opening the binder, creating some event poll, setting up a pipe. Well, I don't like it. When we will be doing this in a technical basis, I'll explain all this stuff, what pipes are, what IOBEX are, why is it doing some 4GB stuff, why is it freeing the binder, or we saw something free and it's unlinking it, and it's linking some stuff, opening binder again, and blah 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 blah, and finally checking the UID. So when the UID is 0, that means we are root. And we can see that it says routing successful. Now this bug requires just one more bug to be a 1 or 0 click. So a 0 click is where you send somebody a link, and when they click it, they are fully compromised. Like you have complete control of their device. But it's quite pain. Like making this, like creating such an exploit can take actually a year or so. So when people come to my DM telling me to hack their boyfriends, I just feel like killing them, because the level of headaches required to make such a thing are just insane. And we just saw the amount of payout you get for creating such. So if you want to make huge money, just start doing your research. But it's quite bad, because each and every day they're introducing new stuff to make it more hard. So we have my socials. I didn't want to list all of them. This is my global username, that's CHA stuff. So if you have anything you'd like, just reach me out or something. My DMs are always open. And then, now you know how to hack the FBI. Actually, this is what the Pegasus and SiteWriter groups, those big APTs, they use such kind of exploits. And do you have any questions or something? Yeah, sure.
Could you mind maybe explaining how you use the use after free bug to gain privileges escalation?
Sure. So on a high level abstraction, remember that CRED structure that I was speaking about? I just forced it to be in the memory space that had been freed. So when the kernel was reading through, it thought there is some data, some authentic data in that space. When it read, it meant the CRED. And then the CRED tells it that the existing space should be in the kernel space. So it's a basic elevation from the user space to the kernel space, and that's how you gain root. So there is so much technicalities behind that, but that's the high level abstraction. Have I answered your question? Awesome. Any other questions? Insults, sentiments, compliments?
So maybe for clarification, so you talked earlier about in the binder there is a queue, right? Whatever. So you pretty much add the cred for, I guess, the process that you're trying to run. I don't know. Is it about leaking a cred, or is it about adding a cred to the queue?
So the cred is already existing, and it says I have very little privileges, like I should only do stuff in the user space. Now the use after free has a specific structure called task struct. Now that task struct has information about the cred. It has something called ADDR limit. The ADDR limit structure tells the kernel the space that they should operate within. So ideally, I should be operating within the user space. Now, when the first time I use the use after free is to increase the ADDR limit, the ADDR limit. So that means I should be able to write and read from the kernel. Now from there, I use the use after free again to write to the correct structure that is already in the kernel, right? So now the kernel thinks I am root, like I should be a process running with elevated privileges. Now does that answer the question? Yeah. Awesome. For those who are wondering what those are, don't worry. I'm also wondering what those are. So we are together. Any other questions?
I had a question. How the ADB push is working, like how is the file being transferred from now your directory on your computer to the phone? And also, maybe tell us your experience in finding 0 days, or you have been close to finding one.
I cannot talk about that without my lawyer. So how the ADB pushes the file from the local machine to the device, well, the ADB is specifically made for, it's specifically designed for that. So if you've been doing Android development, you've been using an ADB a lot. It's a protocol designed like the way we have TCP for the internet, we have HTTPS for the website, we have now ADB just specifically for communicating with Android, making a communication between Android devices and the host machine. And my experience in finding 0 days, I really don't think I should talk about that. It's PII data, and we just had a session on that. So yeah, it's just to keep it black box. Yeah, any other questions?
Hello, Chalie.
Hi.
I had a question. I don't know what your thoughts are with regards of using machine learning, to be specific, maybe deep learning in hunting 0 days, because it might be very difficult to just try to hunt out whether and you don't know what you're really hunting.
Well, just to answer that, it's almost close to impossible to use machine learning to find 0 days, because most of them are something you just know what it is, but you know it's there. So most of them are usually found by fathers, like just on a normal use case, you have WhatsApp, you're supposed to send text, but then you try sending other stuff like irregular characters, it just crashes because it doesn't know how to handle. So you just try that, and by chance, if you make it crash, you analyze what made the crash happen, and then you see if you can use that to your own advantage. Now, the fuzzers work by just generating random data that doesn't even make sense, pushing it to the kernel, trying to see how it's processing it, and if we have a crash, it tries to create something called a reproducer. So if you run the reproducer, you should be able to crash the kernel the way it was supposed to. So now that's where the human intervention comes in. You do the root cause analysis, you try to see if this is what happened, it came from this, and all that, and try to see if you can make an exploit from the same. So using machine learning, it's quite hard. Unless they implement it in the fuzzers, using it in the exploitation fields, I don't think it's feasible. Any other questions? Or have I answered your question? Awesome.
We were to take one last question, but I see 3 hands raised. So, are there questions or comments? Question? Question? Okay, make them brief. I will take all the 3 questions, then you'll answer them once, so that you don't...
Okay, my question is on the bill that you use. I realized that you use the Google Play bill, but on the practicality aspect, will it be simpler or will it be easier to use non-Google Play bill because it will give you root privileges already?
Hi, Chalie.
Hi.
Okay, now for example, the exploit is successful. So how does the Android device respond? And maybe how does someone recover from the exploit?
Hello. I've known you have said you have researched well in Android security. So my question with this, once I was back in campus, while I was in second year, there's one of my friends who sent me a link. I was seeking for attachment. He sent me a link to apply for attachment to that link. When I clicked that link, all my contacts were sent for a message that I'm currently involved in accident. Kindly send me 400 in this number. The other of my number have police, I don't use it. So those who are uncertain of the message just send the money to the other boy. Then recently, early this year, I also saw that incident again. Have you come across that incident in your research, and what are the activities or the measures can be put to avoid it?
Okay, so I have a really short memory, so I'll try to remember all those questions at once. So the first question was about the build. You asked, I used a Google Play build. Yes, it's because I was creating the specific kernel for a Pixel device. So that's why I used the specific build for that device. But if you use the same, there is one shared common line. It's known as the common kernel. It's shared across all the other third-party vendors that are not Google. So if you reverse the same in them and create builds for the same, it should work efficiently on all, be it an item, as I said, be it an infinite and all that. Excuse me. So the other question was, yeah, I talked about this. It was about
links and the contacts.
no. There was another question about. Oh, yeah. The question was what happens after the exploit. So there have been cases where these kind of exploits are not usually used on common people like you and me because they're expensive. They're used on specifically targeted people like maybe presidents, huge journalists. So the chances of you and me being exploited are almost close to zero because we barely have. But how you would recover from that? Immediately you notice something suspicious of such high level, you should contact people like the Citizen Lab. It's or maybe Kaspersky. Actually, you should use some of the tools used by such vendors. We have, I don't know, it's SecurePoint or something. Just install Kaspersky and purchase the license. You should be able to foresee these things before they happen. And I know you people have an issue paying for antiviruses, so yeah, please live like that. And then the last question was about a link be sent and then the contacts receiving messages. So for that, actually I used to make search when I was in high school. I used to be a bad guy, but then I met Jesus and now I do good stuff. So what essentially happens, I actually have done root cause analysis of search. I'll send you the link. I usually do analyze such malicious stuff, links and all that. I'll send you for you to understand what happens. So what basically happens is the link comes in with an application. Maybe you might install it and it might wipe your device clean. Another variant would produce phone noises and they are very persistent. You try to reduce the volume, it's just like moaning all over. It's horrible. Other variants will do what we call smishing. If you have credit, it sends message to all your contacts. The first version that I made used to steal credit. So you just click the link and then if you have credit, I just used to steal 10 bob. You know your comrade, so and I send comrade, so it just steals 10 bob, not just say thank you and all that. So what essentially happens when you click the link, there is some way to install the application. You might install it yourself without knowing, or the final way of doing it is by, okay, you might have an authentic form, an authentic looking form that asks for your phone number. So when you enter the phone number, they'll start sending you premium messages. In the morning, you wake up to a number like 284 has charged you 50 bob for listening to Fuliza or Skiza or something. So it's usually like that. I don't know if I have answered your question, but I'll sure send those resources afterwards. I'm finished, so I guess that's the end. We shall meet again. Oh, and you should attend CyberCon. I probably should be releasing, God willing, if I won't be dead by then, I will be having stuff on iOS. So, yeah, cheers man, have fun. And do research.